March 6, 1987. Zeebrugge, Belgium. A ferry, the Herald of Free Enterprise, is loading passengers and cars for a routine 90-minute crossing to England. The crew rushes. The schedule is tight. The company hates delays. At 7:05 p.m., the ferry departs. Bow doors wide open. Nobody notices. At 7:06 p.m., just 90 seconds later, the ferry capsizes. 193 people drown. Not because of a storm, not because of an explosion, because the bow doors were left open, and the company cared more about being on time than being safe. This is the story of the Herald of Free Enterprise. March 6, 1987. The MS Herald of Free Enterprise sits at the Belgian port of Zeebrugge, loading for a routine crossing to Dover, England. It's a roll-on, roll-off ferry. Cars and trucks drive straight onto the car deck through massive bow doors. Passengers head upstairs. Simple, efficient, profitable. The Herald is operated by Townsend Thoresen, one of Britain's largest ferry companies. And Townsend Thoresen has a culture problem. Speed matters more than safety. Being late is worse than being unsafe. Captains are pressured to sail on time, no matter what. Ships that arrive late get reprimanded. Captains who delay departures get warnings. The message is clear: keep to schedule, at all costs. The Herald's crew knows this. Everyone does. On this particular crossing, the Herald is running behind. Not by much, just a few minutes. But in Townsend Thoresen's culture, a few minutes might as well be an hour. The loading process is frantic. Cars pour onto the car deck. Passengers board. The crew rushes to prepare for departure. One crucial job: close the bow doors. The bow doors are massive steel gates at the front of the ship. When open, they allow vehicles to drive on and off. When closed, they keep water out of the car deck. Closing them is the assistant bosun's responsibility. His name is Mark Stanley. He's supposed to close the doors before the ship leaves port. But on this day, Mark Stanley is asleep in his cabin. Exhausted from the previous crossing, he'd gone below to rest, and nobody woke him. The officer responsible for checking that the doors are closed, the chief officer, is also busy elsewhere. He's on the bridge helping with departure procedures. Standard procedure says the chief officer should confirm the doors are closed before departure. But there's no formal checklist, no alarm system, no indicator light on the bridge showing door status. It's entirely manual. Someone has to walk down, close the doors, then report back. But Mark Stanley is asleep. The chief officer is on the bridge, and the captain, David Lurie, assumes the doors are closed because that's standard procedure. At 7:05 p.m., Captain Lurie gives the order to depart. He has no idea the bow doors are wide open. The Herald leaves port, bow doors gaping, water at deck level, just waiting. For the first minute, everything seems fine. The ferry moves slowly through the harbor. The sea is calm, no waves. But as the Herald reaches open water and increases speed, physics takes over. Water begins flowing through the open bow doors onto the car deck. Not a lot at first, just a trickle. But the faster the ship goes, the more water floods in. Within 90 seconds, thousands of tons of water are sloshing across the car deck. The car deck is massive, the entire width and length of the ship, and it's designed to be one open space so vehicles can drive on and off easily. But that design has a fatal flaw. If water gets onto the car deck, there's nothing to stop it from flowing freely from side to side. It's called the free surface effect. Water sloshing back and forth creates instability, and on a ferry, that instability is catastrophic. As the Herald picks up speed, more water floods through the open bow doors. The car deck begins to fill. The water flows to the port side as the ship turns slightly. The added weight on one side causes the ferry to list, to lean. And once it starts listing, the free surface effect accelerates the disaster. The water rushes to the low side, the ship lists further. More water rushes, the ship lists even more. It's a runaway cycle, unstoppable. On the bridge, Captain Lurie suddenly feels the ship listing. Instruments show the ferry tilting. He doesn't understand what's happening. There's no storm, the sea is calm. Why is the ship listing? Then the horrifying realization: the bow doors must be open. But it's already too late. At 7:06 p.m., just 90 seconds after leaving port, the Herald of Free Enterprise capsizes onto its side in shallow water. The ferry doesn't sink straight down, it rolls over sideways, trapping passengers inside. People in the lounges and restaurants are thrown across rooms as the ship tips. Tables, chairs, and passengers slide toward the walls, which are now the floor. Water floods in through windows and doors. The ship settles on its side in just 20 meters of water. 193 people drown, some trapped in flooding compartments, others thrown into the freezing water. Rescue efforts begin immediately. The capsized ferry is visible from shore. Helicopters and boats rush to the scene. Survivors climb out through windows and stand on the exposed hull. But for 193 passengers and crew, rescue comes too late. The Herald of Free Enterprise lies on its side in shallow water, capsized in 90 seconds, killed by open bow doors. The investigation into the Herald disaster reveals a shocking truth. This wasn't about one sleeping crew member or one distracted officer. This was about a company culture that prioritized schedule over safety, and that culture killed 193 people. Investigators discovered that Townsend Thorson had ignored repeated safety warnings for years. 5 months before the disaster, a captain had formally requested indicator lights on the bridge to show whether the bow doors were open or closed. Management denied the request. Too expensive, not necessary. Other captains had raised concerns about the pressure to depart on time regardless of safety checks. Management's response: keep to schedule. The company had even reprimanded ships for arriving late, even when delays were caused by safety procedures. The message to crews was unmistakable: being late is worse than being unsafe. The investigation also reveals that this wasn't the first time a Townsend Thorson ferry had sailed with bow doors open. It had happened before, multiple times, on different ships. Each time, the ship had been lucky. The sea was calm enough that water didn't flood the car deck catastrophically. But eventually, luck runs out. On March 6, 1987, the Herald's luck ran out. Mark Stanley, the assistant bosun who fell asleep, is charged with manslaughter, but the charges are eventually dropped. Why? Because the investigators conclude that he was failed by a system that had no safeguards. No alarm, no indicator lights, no checklist, no backup procedures. The company had created a system where one person falling asleep could kill 193 people. That's not an individual failure, that's a system failure. 7 Townsend Thorson executives are charged with corporate manslaughter, the first case of its kind in British history, but they're acquitted. The prosecution can't prove beyond reasonable doubt that any single executive was directly responsible. Nobody goes to prison, nobody is held accountable. But the ferry industry changes forever.
After the Herald disaster, regulations transform the ferry industry worldwide. Indicator lights showing door status become mandatory on all ferries. No more assuming doors are closed. The bridge must have positive confirmation. Checklists become standard. Before departure, every critical system must be verified and signed off. Watertight bulkheads, barriers that prevent water from flowing freely across car decks, become required on new ferries. The free surface effect that killed 193 people is engineered out of modern ferry designs. And perhaps most importantly, company culture changes. Being on time stops being more important than being safe, at least officially. Captains gain the authority to delay departure for safety reasons without fear of reprimand. Safety reporting systems are implemented. Crews can report near misses and safety concerns without punishment. The changes work. Modern ferries are dramatically safer than those of the 1980s. But for the 193 people who died on the Herald of Free Enterprise, these changes came too late.
The wreck of the Herald of Free Enterprise was eventually raised and scrapped. The ferry company, Townsend Thoresen, merged with another operator and the name disappeared. But the lessons remain. The Herald disaster is taught in business schools as a case study in corporate culture failure, how a company's priorities, even unspoken ones, can kill. It's taught in engineering programs as an example of system design failure, how a lack of redundancy and safeguards can turn a simple mistake into mass death. And it's remembered by safety professionals as a reminder that "it's always been fine" is not a safety strategy. The Herald of Free Enterprise capsized in 90 seconds because bow doors were left open. But those doors were left open because a company cared more about schedules than safety. 193 people died, not because of bad weather or mechanical failure. They died because of corporate culture. Remember the Herald of Free Enterprise. Remember that safety culture isn't about rules and procedures. It's about what a company actually prioritizes when those priorities conflict. When schedule pressure meets safety concerns, which wins? On March 6, 1987, Schedule won, and 193 people drowned in 90 seconds.